Okay, hi, this is Jenniffer Jamison with Crosby Scholars, and welcome to Resources for Help in College. Mariah, Roseboro, and I are going to talk a little bit about a variety of things. If you are currently have accommodations in high school, this is definitely the meeting for you. If you don't have accommodations in high school and you want to make sure that you're taking up the college on all the resources that they will have available, this is also the meeting for you. So, Mariah, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay, so yes, hi, I'm Mariah Roseboro. I'm Crosby's near peer advisor. I've been on the team since 2023. And yeah, I'm super excited to kind of talk about this topic tonight. I think that there's many kind of avenues that regard getting resources for help in college that exist within the disability office, but also just accommodations in general, as well as just any kind of access that you may need. So we're super excited tonight.
To that end, we're going to do a high level overview on how colleges handle IEPs and 504s. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can request accommodations in college and ask for help. We'll talk a little bit about the Disability Act and students' rights, and then a little bit about strategies for success for students with learning differences and just any student to be able to succeed.
Okay, so what are IEP and 504 plans, right? So IEP and 504 plans are really going to be these essential tools for supporting students with disabilities in K through 12 education. So IEP is going to stand for Individualized Education Plan, which again is kind of tailored for students with specific disabilities. Those plans are going to very much ensure equal access to education through any kind of necessary accommodations that that student may need. However, it is very important to note that these plans do not and are not going to automatically transfer over to college. So this is why we're going to have that bigger conversation and kind of start that conversation so that our students can kind of understand what that will look like. Because the responsibility starts to sort of shift to students to really start requesting those accommodations and understanding what they need, right? So that's where that advocacy piece comes from.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is, you might, I have students who have had issues in college that did not appear in elementary school, middle school, or high school. And it's not too late as a college student to be evaluated and to, figure out how to get accommodations as well. I'm just going to put that there. So, colleges, there's a legal framework, right? There's the Americans with Disability Act. These are the federal laws that ensure students with disabilities have access to educational opportunities. Okay. So then you take that and you get the 504 because the section of the 504 speaks to this, right? Colleges are required to provide reasonable accommodations for eligible students. So, um, the problem and what you're actually going to see is the word reasonable. Um, it will cause the way that colleges offer things and what you might be able to get to be different based on the college that you attend. So, within reason, and if it's at all possible, they should be able to help you. The key difference is in college, the responsibility shifts to the student. We're going to say this, if we say this once, we're going to say it 100 times. Um, but really, when you go to college, not just managing this, but every aspect of your education and your time on that college campus, which classes you take, who your friends are, how you keep up with your dorm, it's all on you, right? So when we say self-advocacy for this, I mean, really learning how to, figure out what you want and how you're going to do things is going to be vital.
Okay. So, how do colleges kind of treat these IEP and 504 plans? So, in college, again, as we kind of mentioned already, the plans are not no longer going to be automatically implemented. So, this is where, again, as Jenniffer just said, that advocacy, right? So, colleges are going to really assess the accommodations through their disability services office. There's lots of different names that each college is going to call it, usually something along the lines of disability services, and it's going to be based on documentation and what that individual needs specifically. specifically. So it's really up to the student to request those accommodations and request those services and really demonstrate the need for the support, right? And as Jenniffer said, really being able to learn how to do that in other parts with things like housing and just your day-to-day things, staying on top of things in terms of budgeting and scheduling, knowing how to ask for help. That's really going to be able to seep into bigger things like requesting accommodations. So that shift really is going to emphasize that importance of planning and self-advocacy to really ensure that the right resources are going to be in place for the student. So again, it does fall on you, but they are also there to advocate for you as well. But it's a relationship that needs to be developed. Yes.
All right, so how do you request accommodations in college? So, there's usually you have to start by registering with the Disability Services Office. Now, as Mariah mentioned, every college campus, even the local high schools, when you talk about the counseling office, it's either student services or guidance or counseling office, right? So you've got to find whatever your college that you're about to go to calls it. If and we're going to talk a little bit about what to do for planning ahead. Um, each college has its own office. You're going to have to submit documentation. And again, the documentation that is needed, they will give you basically when you log into that office online, it has the steps to get the accommodations, and they'll tell you exactly what kind of paperwork that they're looking for. Um, the other thing is you then are going to have a meeting. Now let me just put this on you, parents and students. Students will have to drive the completion of the application, the turning it into the office, the getting it in a timely manner, probably setting up a meeting to evaluate what your documentation says, what you requested, and what the college is actually able to do. Um, and then you're going to make a plan, right? You're going to plan with that college, with that office, with even your professors. And you will have to do this more than once. So you can register with the disabilities office once when you first get there, but every semester, depending on your class and your course load and the type of classes that you have, you might have to reevaluate, okay, my plan says this because this is a lecture class, but now I am in a hands-on class that I might need to, my accommodations might need to be modified. Or maybe you have a lab as well as a lecture class, or you have an online class versus an in-person class, right? So, a lot of students are like, okay, just one and done, and they'll just give me everything I need. Um, you really need to discuss, make a plan, implement it, and then I would say practice it as well. I mean, I have a student who wanted to get who needed an accommodation, received the accommodation, but it was not clear with the professor how the accommodation was being implemented. And it had to do with time and anxiety. And the student tried to use the accommodation in the middle of an exam, and it did not go well. So you want to plan and implement and know ahead of time, not just leave it out there and assume that it's going to be there every semester in every class.
Yes. So what needs to be done under the Disability Act, right? So this is kind of reiterating a lot of what Jenniffer was saying, but again, it's just all about making sure we're starting off that step with self-identifying. So whatever that needs to in terms of disclosing your disability or whatever accommodations you need in order to access said accommodations, it's important to know how to self-identify and know how to kind of get that paperwork going. And then that's when the current diagnostic reports or your documentation then come into things, because you're going to need to provide some sort of documentation or some sort of proof that is going to be able to grant you what you need. And then really, like Jenniffer said, just making sure you are requesting things early. schools are going to operate in sort of a semester and summer sort of thing. And so we just want to make sure that you are being proactive to get that necessary support. And it doesn't hurt to be as early as possible, right? It doesn't hurt to get those conversations going, make sure that they know you within the office, and that you are putting your best foot forward in terms of being your biggest supporter and your biggest advocator for your own self, right? So yes, just kind of reiterating what steps need to be done under the Disability Act. Yes, and so it's going to be self-identifying, providing that documentation, and getting those accommodations requested early.
And I want to remind everybody, some of the documentation that they might require might need to be provided by a specific professional there might be a leadway, right? I have had students there was one professional here in Mooresville, you had to drive to Cornelius, I think, to be evaluated, and she was scheduling 6 months out. So I would look at what the college has or what they're requiring and make sure that you give yourself enough time to get the appointment to then get the reports and that kind of thing. Um, okay, so the difference between high school and college, basically, in high school, your teachers are holding your hand. They're required to modify curriculum based on providing the support. They try to do that the best they can. The accommodations are automatic. Teachers frequently monitor students' progress. I would say also in high school, school counselors are involved in the evaluation of this. I have seen principals involved in the evaluation of this, and also your parents are involved. And again, when you get to college, you are driving this. They're not, in fact, even if your parent calls them and tries to drive this process for you, because of FERPA, whether it be finances, and this is crazy, your parents are paying your college bill, but your parents can't talk to the college about your college bill. So it's the same with disabilities, right? Unless certain permissions are given, colleges want to talk directly to the student. And we've talked a bazillion about self-advocation.
So a couple of common college accommodations. Again, there is an array of accommodations that are available and possible to students at different campuses. But just some things that we've included are going to be extended time for tests, right? Note takers or lecture recordings. Fun fact, I volunteered as a note taker for a couple of my classes, my first year of college. And I know that was a great help for the disabilities office. So that is something, even if you don't need it, you could also volunteer your own time, right? Reduced distraction environments for exams. So again, whatever that looks like or whatever that may need to look like for the specific person. Assistive technologies like screen readers would help out some people, right? Alternate textbook formats, so maybe things like bigger, larger print, different type of fonts that are easier to read. And again, the things kind of go on in terms of what those accommodations can look like. And I just think, obviously, these things are going to make such a significant difference in managing academic tasks for the people that definitely need it. So again, whatever that accommodation needs to look like for you, advocate for yourself, and really communicate and work with the people in the office to see what can be done for you to make things better. And again, you could also show up for them. So like I said, with the note taking, you can also be collaborating with the office to see how you can even help, which we always recommend.
The other thing I'm going to add to that is sometimes you have to like ask for accommodation and then you have to leave it on your list, right? If you are like, oh, well, I'll just ask for that later, it might be harder to get it later. You want to go ahead and do what you need to do to get that accommodation and then utilize it. Okay. So, additional accommodations depending on the college and what your circumstance is. Some schools will allow you to register for classes early, right? So this is a really good benefit that you get to choose your classes. Maybe classes might fill up. Maybe you learn better at a certain time of the day or accessibility. You need to be somewhere on campus, right? So early registration is a plus. Housing needs are also something that might be considered, like, if you have a medical issue or something going on where you need to have a single room, or you need to have a bathroom attached to your room, or you need a refrigerator in your room. Like, we are just learning a bunch of things about diabetes this summer. And when we were touring a college campus, I think it was Elon, they were saying that they made sure that anybody with diabetes had a refrigerator in their room and was able to, I think, request a single room if they could. I don't know. The other thing is housing needs tied to service animals. Um, you want to make sure you understand the service animal thing very carefully. It's just, you can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to bring my cat to school." There's lots of things that go along with that, and you want to read very carefully. But that ties into housing needs because if you have a service animal and the campus might let you have your service animal on campus, they might restrict you to a specific building that they allow that in because it's not allowed in every dorm. So you want to watch out for that. And then some schools will offer a tutor or life coach. I say life coach because I have seen, some folks need help with like organization and just being able to manage things. Some things are free on college campuses. Some things are available to all students, whether they need accommodations or not. And then other schools understand that there's a population of students that might need some extra help, and they build that into services provided. I know like High Point, you can actually purchase additional services to help students kind of figure things out at school. And I say tutor, but it's more of a life coach because they're not just helping with a specific topic. So do we have any questions at this point? We've just gone on and on. Okay, we're gonna keep on going then.
Okay, so on top of disability services and accommodations, we also wanted to just highlight additional campus resources in general, which again are kind of applicable to everyone, and we would recommend any student to seek these out. So in addition, most colleges offer things like counseling and mental health services to support with your well-being. I can say firsthand, I used the counseling center my first year with having to deal with that transition as a first gen student. That was definitely those therapists and those workers did such an amazing job being able to help me in that regard. Tutoring and academic support centers to really help with things like time management, study skills, coursework. Again, the tutors, they go through extensive training, and they're really there to help you. And they're usually going to be students who have already taken the class that you are having maybe some troubles with. Also, peer support groups, right? Often you can find these through disability or maybe just affinity organizations to really build your community and share experiences. Again, I joined a lot of on-campus groups my first year, again, to just acclimate me into the community and the city, and just helping me feel a little bit more integrated into what the college experience is going to look like, right? So even if you're not necessarily directly needing accommodations through the disability services, these sort of things are programs and buildings and offices that we really encourage all of you students to seek out and to see what kind of opportunities are available through each of these offices. Because again, they also do fun things, right? Even within the tutoring center, they may have their own fun events that you can kind of go to that you then meet new people, or even with peer support groups, there sometimes you may meet a peer who has their own things that they do, right? So you just never know what kind of integration can happen because you are seeking these things out. So just on top of that, we want to mention those things and really encourage you guys to continue advocating for yourself even through these ways as well.
I would also say earlier than later. A lot of students sometimes will go and seek out these services after they have started to have an issue. And I believe, like, let's just be honest, I can't do math. I never could. So if I was going to go to college, my recommendation to myself is go check out the Tutoring and Academic Support Center while they're having the open house. Typically on a college campus, and Mariah could probably speak to this at UNC Charlotte, but like your first week is to acclimate everybody to everything that's available. So go on like a little scavenger hunt and find all the nooks and crannies on campus. Because I will tell you, I'm going to say confidently that 90% of the student population does not use the services that are available completely. And so you could find for free, somebody to help me with math all the way through the semester, not only when I'm preparing for the exam, but when I'm getting ready, when I'm doing my homework on a daily basis, that kind of thing. If you are not needing supports, especially in the tutoring, you can also make some money by being a student tutor, right? So maybe you need help in math, but you're great in English, right? So um, do a little scavenger hunt, go find mental health services, go find tutoring, go find the career center. That's another one. And peer groups, I cannot under like finding a group, right? Mariah, can you give me an example of some groups that are available?
Yeah, off the top of my head, immediately, just as me being like a psychology major, obviously psychology majors are usually the most popular major at schools, right? And so oftentimes it was harder for us to maybe get a real specific one-on-one interactions with advisors. And so there was a group of psychology majors who took it upon themselves to be, psychology major advisors, and they created this peer group where they reached out to all of us, and they were upperclassmen, so they just really were able to answer any kind of nuanced questions that you maybe have. So things like that, right? And that also lends itself into don't be afraid to also maybe start your own peer support group once you get more acclimated into your campus and understand your program or your kind of niche area a little bit more. Yeah, so immediately off the top of my head, that's what comes to my mind.
Cool. All right. So, um, I think we've beat this to death, but high schools, parents and teachers are actively involved. In college, students, you've got to be proactive. Encourage your students. So parents, encourage your students to practice speaking up. Students, while you're in high school, go ahead and practice speaking up. Go ahead and practice asking for help, asking for extra time, asking for, information, deadlines. The most dangerous thing for a student to do at any grade is to sit in the back of the room and be quiet and not ask for help and just stay in their confusion, right? Um, it's okay to be quiet. It's okay to be, I'm trying to say, like, if you've got it and you know it, then don't worry about it. But if you're struggling in any way, shape, or hand, or shape, like raise your hand and ask for help.
Okay, so again, kind of just to reiterate and really drive home and wrap things up in terms of how can we really make sure that you are succeeding and really learning, really getting to your full potential, right, when you have learning differences in college, right? So again, it really just starts with preparation. So knowing your rights under the ADA, understanding the accommodations that you're really entitled to, knowing what you need, right? Using your campus resources, like we mentioned, things like tutoring centers, counseling services, peer support groups, career center. We want to make sure that you're also doing things like practicing your time management, balancing your academic and personal responsibilities, stuff that we always are driving home here at Crosby. We would love to have more conversations with you guys about and help you guys understand how to do that to the best of your ability. Um, Staying organized, right? Keep tracking of deadlines and communicating with your professors regularly. Again, this all just lends itself into if you're being proactive in the small things, bigger things like obtaining accommodations and really making sure you're being able to get your access and your resources are going to come a little bit easier, right? And then lastly, just again building that supportive support network of peers and advisors who are really going to encourage and guide you. So again, just kind of reiterating what we've already been through.
All right, additional tips for parents to help students. And students, if your parents are not on this call, you can ask them for this help, right? encourage independence. Like, I know that as a parent, like Mariah can probably speak from the student perspective, but as a parent, I am like, I want to let go, but I want to know that you did what you were supposed to do. Right? So letting go. Mom, I got this. Dad, I've got this. Help prepare for, practicing healthy habits is always a good thing. But practice having a conversation on the phone with an adult. I know that that sounds weird, but I know a lot of students, like even as something as simple as calling the campus security office to find out how to buy a parking pass, right? Even just picking up the phone and getting to that adult is hard. So maybe practice with your parent. Like, let's have the conversation. What should I say? What am I looking for? That kind of thing. Parents should be supportive, right? The way that we did things is not necessarily the way that things need to be done right now. So you need to trust your child that they know, and give them some leeway to confidently advocate for themselves, right? And then, sometimes when things get hard, we want to quit. But we want to make sure that we're encouraging persistence. Like, you know what? I know it was hard this week. I know the first week at college was hard, but maybe we don't come home every weekend. Maybe we stay for 3 weeks or 2 weeks and set small goals. And maybe the first time you can come home after 2 weeks, the next time you can come home after 3 weeks, because helping your and students staying on campus and getting more involved will actually help you to feel more comfortable and be more successful in your experience.
So again, we really just, as you guys are thinking about transitioning to college, and trying to figure out how to advocate yourself, we just want to drive home that your success is really going to depend on things like your preparation, right? So as we mentioned, being proactive and in contacting these offices early, sooner rather than later, right? And not waiting till something goes wrong to seek those services out. Self-advocacy, so knowing what you need, right? Understanding what something means in your paperwork and your documentation, knowing how to speak for yourself, and just really using the resources that are available to you. So all of the offices and resources and programs that we mentioned and tips and tricks, all of these things are going to really ensure that your success is being upheld, right? So college is just your chance to take responsibility for your education and your accommodations. And, I think that with the right mindset and support, you can really overcome any challenges that are thrown your way. Because trust me, there are going to be some challenges and there's going to be those setbacks and those bad days, right? But just knowing how to thrive within even those bad days, both academically, socially, mentally, physically, right? All of those things kind of are going to make up your bigger experience of college. And so hopefully, talking through some of those things have really shown you how to prepare, how to self-advocate, and how to utilize your resources.
Now, in planning ahead, there's a couple things that I will tell you. Researching things in advance. So if you're a junior on this call and you know that you're going to need a little extra help, then when you go to pick your college, you want to make sure that you understand what services that college has available. Now, the question that a lot of students ask me is, do I disclose my accommodation need or do I not disclose it, right? That is a personal choice. I am never going to tell somebody you should or should not, but you should be very clear with the adults that are involved in your college admissions and college application process what you have chosen to do. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an example. I had a student who was using a teacher evaluation, recommendation, and the teacher spoke very highly of the student, but used the framework of their learning difference as an example of their resilience and their hard work. And then the college contacted the student and was like, "Oh, are you going to need this?" And the student was like, how did you find out? Like, right? So first off, if you're having to hide it to get into the school, I don't know. You should maybe think about that because if you really need that service, you want to make sure that everybody's upfront from the beginning, right? But again, it's a personal choice, but you should basically research in advance. How equitable is the Office of Disability Services? Maybe get some, student recommendations, right? Talk to other parents and students and their experience at that school using that service. Um, Evaluate what the campus has to offer. I would go on campus for this, guys. I would go visit that office. I would go meet with the advisor. Matching your accommodations. Um, I have seen schools that, like MIT, for instance, you'd be very surprised, but MIT is very accustomed to IEPs and 504s, and they help students manage them really well. But there are other schools that are not as supportive. So, knowing that on the front end is going to help you. So make sure your college list has schools that you know what's going on. The other thing is you don't want to miss any deadlines for applying for accommodations. So like if you know your freshman year, you're going to want that what we talked about helping with your schedule, then you can't wait until July or August to tell the college that you need something. You need in the spring of your senior year to be having these conversations. Um, okay. The I was Mariah, I was just going to go ahead and speak to this one real quick. There are some schools that have specific programs. So depending on your challenge, for instance, ECU has something called STEEP or STEP. App State, we find that schools that do a lot of teaching will also have a lot of available resources as they are educating their teachers on how to teach dyslexic students. Then dyslexic students can be a practice for the teaching students, right? And so on and so forth. But you can research programs online to find beyond just the special services, special programs if you need additional levels of support or you need a guided pathway through college with your learning difference.